as a kid.
What the fudge? Let's see, what are we talking about today? What's up, guys? I'm Talon with TFC.
I'm Jeremy with TFC.
And today we are going to be going over kind of an overview on our boats. Why a cataract? We had a lot of questions at the Denver Fly Fishing Show. And we really just want to do a video that, like I said, goes over all of our boats, the benefits to using a cataract, and what each boat, our 3-man, 2-man, and 1-man, what we value in them and what they really do a good job at when you're on the water.
The other thing about it that we wanted to talk about was at these shows that we go do, when we get questions, a lot of the questions are the same questions. So we thought that we'd go over some of the particular questions. Maybe it's boat specific, and maybe it's just an overall overview question that happens a lot because of being a cataract. A lot of people don't see catarafts out on the water here in Colorado particularly, right?
Well, and I'd even say, rafts are big, drift boats are big. You don't see a ton of catarafts in the fly fishing specific world. And I think the reason we went with a cataract, I think that's kind of what a lot of people's questions are about.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's usually the bulk of the questions that you and I both get.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to, not necessarily as a sales feature by any means, but just from a functionality and a safety standpoint, the things that this boat offers that are a lot of the questions we get.
Yep. So first and foremost, we had a lot of people ask, we're a new company. Not a lot of people know about us. We just kind of launched on the market. And with that said, people are always very hesitant about new products in the fly fishing industry, especially the boat world. We just kind of need to introduce ourselves, what we do, why we started, who does what. We're a family-run business. Me and you, father and son, and then Jana, Russ, Letitia, they're all part of the family as well, and they each kind of have their own thing that they contribute to the boats that kind of brings it all together.
Yeah, it's really been a real family thing for us. Russ, my dad, Talon's grandpa, helped invent and build the integrated rod holders. My mom and grandma Jana has done an incredible job with the accessory, the stripping basket, the
storage bags,
even
the new
the new gear bags,
the gear bags that go on leg locks, and the coolers just to hold phones, stuff like that.
Yeah, that part of it's really helped it come together. And then Talon's mom, my wife Letitia, she's behind the scenes and she does everything that makes this company run. So without her, we don't function. So it's really truly a true family, a local family-owned business. So it's made it really cool to bring everyone together to make this product come out the way it has. So it's been cool.
Yeah, but no, I think especially at the fly fishing show, it was our first time at the Denver Fly Fishing Show. Kind of first time we introduced ourselves to the fly fishing industry. But we definitely had a lot of people that liked that part about the business. The family run business. Started just from the love of a father and son and the passion for fly fishing and getting out and exploring. I think a lot of people really liked that part of the company, and that's really who we are. We're just a few dudes who love to fly fish and get out on the
100%.
water, and that's kind of where TFC was born and why we started building boats.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the thing that separates us from a lot of companies is we didn't go into business to make money. I mean, that might sound weird, but all we wanted to do was build a boat that we loved, that we wanted to fish out of because we love to fish. We never had any intent on actually turning this into a company. We just wanted to make our own boat. And then the more we put them on the water, people saw them, and there was so much interest that we just decided, we're like, hey, you know what? Let's put them out there, and if we can help provide that opportunity to other people, the opportunity that we found for ourselves,
And give back to
and
fly fishing and
yeah,
the people who love to do it. I
yeah,
think that was kind
exactly,
of why we
to be
did it as
part of the
well.
fly fishing world and help other people, but not necessarily to go in and just as a money making opportunity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Really, where I want to start the video off is why a cataract. I
Okay.
think a lot of people have that first question at the fly fishing show, at the other show we have done, for our upcoming one at the Wasatch. I think a lot of people are always asking why a cataract. People, like I said, are very, people love their rafts, people love drift boats, and there's a lot of great boats out there. Every boat has its purpose and its time and place, but where I think catarafts stand out is the versatility of them. You're able to do a lot of different things with a cataract that a lot of other boats aren't able to do. Um, I think starting off, one of the biggest benefits to a cataract that I've noticed, especially on like rivers in Colorado, freestones like the Roaring Fork, the Upper Colorado, especially the Eagle, when you can float it at higher flows. I think being able to split rocks makes a huge difference in how you fish, how you row, how you hold someone on a line. I think the ability that catarafts have of splitting rocks is, something that not a lot of people think about, but it you end up working a lot less on the river, and you end up saving your arms a lot more just because of that, the slot down the middle.
Talk to me though about your opinion. I just want your opinion on this. The splitting of the rocks, I think, is a huge thing because for me, it changed the way that I read water.
Totally.
Why did it change how you read water? What did it change for you?
Well, in specific, we owned a 13.6. We learned to row on a 13-foot 6 raft, a full size
Yep.
fishing raft. And no one's good when they start learning to row. And we got high centered all the time on rocks. We'd bang that nose in. We'd have the one big old rock stuck in the middle of the raft, and we'd just sit.
Right underneath.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to make those mistakes in a drift boat because then you're probably got a hole in the bottom of your boat. But a raft was way more forgiving, and that's kind of why we bought it for Colorado, because a lot of our rivers in Colorado got rocks you got to avoid like that. But then when we rode our cataract for the first time, you started looking at water that you couldn't row before, because you're like, before you'd get high centered on those rocks, and now you're like, well, I can split that rock and I can hold that line still, and you can fish that run that we weren't, that we had to run over before.
100%. You nailed
So
it.
you're really able to fish some different water, and people don't really realize that, I don't think, because you don't have to avoid everything you see. You just have to get that pontoon on each side of whatever you see. And even if you do get stuck, it's still way more forgiving.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Way more safer. So
You nailed it for me. Like there were runs and there were places that you wanted to drift, but that's where the water was. So in our raft, you had to run it over. And for me, it changed it literally changed the way that I read a river, because there used to be, everyone goes river right.
Yep.
Well, if I don't have to go river right because the fish are river right, maybe I can go center or left center, and I can split a couple rocks, and then we can fish that everyone's been running over.
Totally.
And it just or get to the other side of the river where you couldn't cast to prior to, because you were going river right. Yep. So now we're going river center, and there's a hole or a pocket or something on the left that no one gets to fish because they can't take a boat down that direction. Exactly. For me, it completely changed the way that I read where we were going to fish.
Yep. And not only with splitting rocks, but our 3-man floats really high. It has a really high draft. Our 2-man and our 1-man have a really, really high water line. And so you can end up splitting rocks, but then you can end up running over, stuff that's only 5 inches deep, and you can grind down it a little bit. And we float so high on these catarafts that you can get down, some skinny section of water that might lead to a deeper pool that you can't access, on some of other types of boats and at low flows. So, I think catarafts are really ideal too for super low flows on some skinnier rivers. You can actually get away with floating some sections of the Eagle at really low flows
Yeah,
that you're not able to a lot of the year.
hundred
And
percent. Yeah.
I think that's
It
a
extends your
very
season. Like it extends, like particularly out here west and in Colorado in particular. For years, we've had such low water years. Now it looks like we're gonna have a really good water year, so that's
yep.
great this year. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm excited. But in the years that it hasn't been, it extends our season to where we're floating water that no one else is. Um, Earlier and later in the season before and after runoff,
Yep.
and so it's put you on the water. And in sections like there's sections of the Colorado, for example, that have boat ramps that are closed. That's the other thing about our twin. And even our 3-man, you could probably get it out. We haven't really tried it, but particularly our 2-man and the 1-man, they're so light you don't need a boat
You can throw
launch.
them down a cliff.
Yeah, you can drop them literally off of a bridge, and as long as you got
And I
access,
think that's the biggest thing is with catarafts specifically. And we have pretty large diameter tubes on all of the boats we use. But it's, specifically our 2-man and our 1-man, you get all of the benefits of your, really small 1-man pontoon boats and your super lightweight, small rafts. But because they got such big pontoons, you get the safety and the stability with the diamond plate standing platforms um, of bigger boats. I think the other massive thing that no other boats do that is specific to catarafts is that they don't hold water. The fact that catarafts cannot hold water because you just have the frame, all the water runs right back out. It makes it so that you like literally almost can't flip one if you're rowing, some of your class 4 stuff in Colorado, like the Gunnison and stuff like that we did. But the other thing about it is because it doesn't hold water, it rows pretty easy,
yeah.
pretty maneuverable because you're not holding water like that. There's a lot of benefits to that I never realized.
Yeah, the idea when you talk about a raft, whether it's a self-bailing raft or a bucket boat, right? Um, if you get in a situation where you're taking waves over, that self-bailing bottom is going to help, but it's not going to run out as it's still going to cause you
Hold a
to
little bit of
fill up,
water.
and you can wrap and you can do all those type of
Or
things.
especially, we've done some places where you can get stuck in hydraulics and it starts pulling you back, or weirs that are create those hydraulics. And when that water starts pouring over the tubes on a cataract, like we've been in situations where if it was a raft, that thing would have filled up and immediately flipped. But because that water, when you're stuck in a hydraulic like that, and you got that pontoon that gets sucked back in, water's coming over, it just runs right back out. So it's really, really hard to flip a cataract.
So for you, the first time you did that, when you went over something and a hydraulic pulled you back in, what was your first, like, what goes through your
I mean, I
mind?
was freaking out. I was like, man, we're about to flip this thing, dude. But then, like, I realized, like, holy crap, like, I'm not even trying to get out of this. And this, like, it was a serious hydraulic, and we still didn't flip. Like, the water just ran right back out through. So I think safety, catarafts are probably one of the safest boats that you can row.
For all the boats I've rowed, like after rowing drift boats and full size rafts, and particularly some of the smaller, lighter rafts that are out on the market that are made to be very mobile, which they have their time and place. But I did recognize from a safety standpoint immediately you are able to get out of situations. And not only that, but it gives you time to think. For example, like you're talking about the hydraulic, you were rowing the first time we got sucked back into a hydraulic, and it was pretty serious. And when you're going back into that hydraulic with all your might, a lot of times you're not pulling out of it immediately. It takes a minute to try to get your brain around what's happening and how I'm going to get out of the situation. If you're in a raft, a lot of times you don't that minute you're done. I mean, you're going to fill up, you're going to flip. We pulled back into that hydraulic and water was pouring over the back and it was coming completely over the pontoon, and we just sat there. Now, I mean, we might have filled our pants a little bit, but to be honest with you, like we had time to say, okay, we're okay.
Yep.
No, we're still breathing.
Yep.
We're still on top of the water, and now what do we do to get out of here?
Yep.
And that just the forgiveness. So
Yeah.
the forgiveness that a cat gives you is something that you're not really going to see in your rafts, or particularly in a drift boat.
Yeah, I mean, you make one mistake, in a drift boat. And,
Might be your last.
yeah. I mean, they don't float.
Yeah.
Once they're upside down, they don't float.
No, they will sink.
I mean, with that said, like we were just in Wyoming on, the slower stretch of the North Platte, and it gets windy there. And I mean, no boats do good in the wind.
Let's talk about wind for a minute, though. I mean, honestly, if we're talking about wind, like
No boats do good in the wind. Now, in the slower rivers like that, drift boats will, be a better option if you're
For sure.
if you're a guy and you're putting 200 days on the water,
for sure.
wind constantly on slow rivers like, sections of the lower North Platte.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to be guiding out of a cataract in a situation like that. But we took our 3-man there and our 2-man there, and we fished every section, and we made it down in 40-mile-an-hour winds. So no boats do good in the wind, but because we have that tunnel on a cataract, depending on that wind direction, especially if you're a 2-man, you can get that tunnel pointed directly at the wind, and then you really don't take on that much wind. So, if you're in a 3-man, it might be a little harder. You're trying to keep people, fishing a line, trying to keep it parallel with the river, and it can be harder. But specifically on our 2-man, you can row it like a Cadillac. You can point that nose wherever that wind's coming from and keep your guy in the line and not, get blown off the river. No wind's fun to row.
No,
matter
it sucks.
what boat you got.
I don't care who
it
you are.
sucks. But there are some workarounds if you do find yourself, in a slow run and you're trying to get downriver. Like there are some ways that you can handle it. So I think that's important to acknowledge for sure.
I mean, the lower portions and the middle portions of the Colorado is where she was tested. We did almost
all of our testing.
But most of our testing was on that, and it gets windy up there, and
Yeah. So going back to why a cataract, I think we kind of covered a lot of the basics of what a cataract does. Splitting rocks can change the way you row.
And the way you fish.
And the way you fish. You can't take on water. They're very safe because you can't take on water. They're almost impossible to flip. They're pretty maneuverable. They hold a line really well because you're on 2 pontoons. So, if you're not dealing with wind, you got a nice calm day, you're really not going to have to work all that hard to hold that line. They track so well compared to, a lot of other boats. So I think that's another thing to acknowledge on, why a cataract can help you be more successful on the water.
But particularly here in Colorado, for us, when we were looking to build a boat for ourselves, we were trying to do something that would do everything because we only wanted to have one boat.
And it really started with the 1-man and on stillwater stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really where it started, and the ability, cataracts have the ability to add a lot of different motors to them. I think that's also a benefit of a cataract. You can easily add rear mount, and we even on our 1-mans were able to add bow mount trolling motors that you see on skiffs and stuff like that. And
with spot lock.
and maybe it's stupid. I don't know. It's an expensive thing to put on there, and maybe not a lot of people like it, but having the ability to drive yourself around on a 1-man pontoon that you're able to stand up in and that you can control with a remote, we really thought that was pretty sick. And that's really where our 1-man boat was the first boat we designed.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think the Cataraft came from. And after that, we realized that they were able to do so much more when you added a 2-man in there. And then when we were able to actually build a full-size 3-man Cataraft, we realized that they really can do a lot.
The other thing is that when we got the 1-man, if we're talking about how we developed it and the advantages, the 1-man, you and I wanted to be able to fish little tiny pockets of water, even on moving water. Yep. And so not to hotspot anywhere, but like on the upper Colorado, there's canyon areas where the water's usually too swift for full boats to get down and through. Well, we noticed all those little pockets and little side, not necessarily side channels, but just eddies that were, you could eddy out and you could actually pull into that eddy and hold in an eddy and then stand up on your own on a 1-man, and you could fish runs and little...
Yeah, it's like wade fishing, but out of your own little personal boat that you can still stand up in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really where TFC began, was because we wanted to be able to do that on our own.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that this is a good point to kind of lead us into doing the overview of all 4 of our boats.
Okay.
I think we start with the 3-man, kind of what you're going over. Starting from the back to front, we have the anchor system. You know, we first built the 1-man and 2-man, and we could easily build the anchor system to the side, and it had no problem. But then when you add that angler behind the rower, we're like, well, we need to figure out a way to get this out of the way, but still function. And that's kind of our whole anchor system is integrated into the frame, but runs underneath the rower in the back seat, and then comes back up to the very back, so it's still center. And there's not a lot of pivot points or angles that add a lot of tension. It's integrated, it's easy to use, and it's right there at your feet for the rower.
Is the 3-man guide. We also wanted to not just add a motor mount, but we wanted to add a motor mount that you could put a real motor. So we're not talking about a 2.5 or a 4-horse motor. We wanted to be able to build a motor mount that would hold a real motor. And so we've done that. Like we were able to.
I think that what you just touched on is what I'd pride our 3-man on. It's not a lightweight boat compared to our 2-man. It's a full size, heavy 3-man cataract.
A trailered boat.
But like I said, like they use big 3-man, full size ones in Patagonia and stuff with motors. I think what our 3-man cat is the benefits to it is how versatile it is, because you can go and row it down, class 5 rapids. It's got 15-foot long by 25-inch diameter tubes. It's got big old tubes on it, but it's still a cataract, so you get that safety of being able to row class 5 whitewater. But then you can go and throw on, we're planning on throwing a 25 or 30 horse motor on the back of it, and you can go and throw it on any still water with a full size. We're thinking about taking it to Powell and ripping around. We're going to try and get this thing going 25 miles an hour. I also want to take it to, your slower rivers like the White River in Arkansas that people use motors on. Being able to take this boat and row it, successfully down and easily down super hard technical whitewater, but then also being able to go throw it on lakes and slow deep rivers that you need big motors on. I think that's kind of the biggest thing about the 3-man is it really is a boat that can do everything. You can go throw it on serious whitewater and technical skinny rivers, and then you can go throw it on deep lakes, deep rivers that are slow, and you can kind of do everything. So while it may not be the best for, like we talked about in windy, slow rivers like the North Platte in Wyoming and stuff, you can still take it there, and you can still fish out of it. It will fish. You can still scull out of it. You can still maneuver it a little bit, but you can really do everything in it.
Yeah.
Compared to where a lot of big boats aren't able to do everything in it. You're literally able to go and do everything out of this boat.
And because you're able to do it, what you just said, the different places, it's a great overnight boat. It's great for taking on overnight trips if you're floating a river and there's 3 or 4 sections and you want to go down. Because of the capacity of those tubes,
you can load the crap.
You can load it because you can put. Now everyone knows that if you load the more you load any boat, but a cat in particular, the less maneuverable it gets. But with that said, if you're floating a big river, you're going overnights, or you're on a lake and you want to go overnights. If we're starting back to front, we have flip seats in the back and the front with gear storage with baskets underneath them. Totally. So that's gear storage. Totally. Then it comes with an integrated Yeti 45. Our twin and our twin Pro come with 2 Yeti 35s, but in the 3-man, there's also a Yeti 45 in the middle, so your cooler for overnights is already there.
Exactly.
After rowing a raft that we had for a while, and trying to figure out rod storage, we had bought the attachable rod storage, and it just never seemed to hold the way we wanted it to hold. So when we were talking about on the 3-man, we not only wanted rod storage, so we wanted it to be accessible. So we did 2 things. We got 4 rod holders, and 2 of them are load from the front, 2 of them load from the back. That was so huge for us. There were so many times where in the past, they all loaded from the rear and we'd be rowing, and the guy that's rowing had to get the rod for whoever's up front. We decided we wanted to change that. So that was something that, as far as we know, we're the only boat on the market that actually has rod storage that loads from the rear and the front.
Not only that, but we already talked about it, but they're also integrated into the frame itself, and they create the holding point up front and the stripping basket area. So like we said, everything on the three-man has a function. Every dimension has a purpose, and the rod holders, I think, definitely show that specifically with where the cutoffs are. Like you mentioned, Russ was able to design those rod holders, and they're cut off at a specific point where they cover a lot of the rod, but they also make it easily accessible, and so you can easily get that tip in there without bending your rod all the way up and breaking tips and stuff. So it comes out easier, and that cutoff point's at a specific point for a reason, so that you can get rods in and out a lot easier compared to other rod holders.
Yeah,
sure.
100%. And then I think to finish off the three-man, we have to go to the bags. We have to go to the storage bags, because there's a rear storage bag under the flip seat. Then in the front, there's a storage bag under the front flip seat. And then we've got 3 zipper bags just for personal items, for wallets or phones, that are attached to the leg locks, both in the front and the rear, and then under the rower's seat as well, for the rower, for tippet, or for a fly box, or for wallet, keys, whatever, first aid, whatever you might want to use it for. That is part of it. So that really finished off the three-man, was those storage items.
Totally. And one last thing, about the pontoons. Each pontoon has a double air chamber, just for safety reasons. You hit something nasty, you'll still have half of the pontoon won't. The whole thing won't go deflate on you if you run it into something sharp. And also we added the top chafe to all of our boats, including the three-man, and somewhat of a double bottom. We offer different options with that. You can either get a 4.5-inch strip, or you can pay a little extra money and get a full double bottom, just to add some abrasion resistance for grinding down shallow spots, grinding down rocks. It just kind of increases the life of the pontoons and the inflatables themselves.
Yeah, it's basically a $400 or $500 insurance policy.
Exactly.
If you want it, if you need it, if you think that that's kind of where you're going with that. And that's optional on all of the boats, regardless of size.
Yeah.
So after going to the three-man, that brings us to the twin and the twin pro. So we've got two-man options. Very, very similar boat. Very few differences. The differences are, particularly in the state of Colorado, to guide out of a boat, you've got to have more than one air chamber per inflatable device. So on the Twin Pro, we went to a 22-inch tube, which is going to hold a little bit more weight. It's going to get you out of the water a little more, drafts a little shallower, but it also has 2 air chambers. So in Colorado in particular, you have to have those 2 air chambers per inflatable device. So the Twin Pro, we had some folks approach us that said, hey, we really like your twin, but it's only got 1 air chamber, and I'd like to be able to guide out of it when I have 1 client. So that's where the Twin Pro came from. It got a little bit wider to get to accommodate the 22-inch tube, and it got the 2 air chambers. Pretty much everything else on the Twin Pro is identical to the twin. It's just the size of the tube and the 2 air chambers. Again, the Twin Pro is the boat that you and I predominantly use. I would say probably 90% of the time. There's only 2 of us, and it's a beast. I mean, it'll take on any whitewater we need it to. It fishes skinny. It's still light enough to put on the top of a truck. It is a little bit more money because of those options that come on the tube. But for us, that's kind of where our bread and butter is the Twin Pro.
And the Twin and Twin Pro, they both have your Yeti 35 cooler seats. They both have the 2 integrated rod holders that create the stripping basket up front. They both have the they both have the anchor system that is integrated into the rear rower's cooler and attaches at the back. So they all have they basically have the exact same frame, both the boats.
Yeah. The one thing that, a question, because we talked about questions that we get. One question that we get is on the Twin and the Twin Pro, we went back and forth about whether we wanted that rower's seat to swivel, right?
Yeah.
We've had it, we started with it non-swiveling, then we went to fully swiveling, then we put on a locking swivel, and now we've gone back to a swivel seat. The question we get is, well, if you're rowing and you're going to be rowing some more technical whitewater, would you really want a swivel seat? After rowing it all ways, we've decided to stick with the swivel seat because it's an access point. We'll go over that at some point, but being able to turn that seat 180 degrees, there's an access point so you can get in and out and launch the boat from the rear of the boat, and then you can swivel and turn around and row.
Crawl around the cooler.
Yeah, you don't have to crawl around
everything to get in. With that said, we do a lot of, if someone's interested in customizing one, we can customize pretty much anything and everything to how they want it. So with that said, if someone wants their Wise rower seat just mounted straight to the cooler and not swiveling, we totally can do that.
100%.
Based on preference, you can customize everything you want on these frames, but that is very true about the two-man. Being able to swivel that around and enter the boat from the rear and not have to crawl over everything definitely makes it a lot easier getting in and out of the boat when you pull over.
One of the other questions that we get, both of us have had this question quite a bit, is people notice that we sit higher than a lot of boats. The rower seat particularly sits higher to some extent than the guy in front. So let me ask you, what is your answer to that? I know what my big thing was, but you tell me what you think.
Well, specifically, whitewater people love to sit low. They want to sit as low to the water as they can, but for fishing purposes, I hated that. Like not being able to see what's coming up in front of you. You got the front guy blocking your view. Like being able to sit higher, to have a better vantage point to see water that you want to fish, to even spot fish. Yep. Sitting higher, I feel like gives you a lot of advantages that you don't get when you sit lower in boats and stuff.
Absolutely. For me, the thing, like you nailed it. But when we first started rowing years ago, sitting below the guy in front of me made me crazy. I couldn't read water. I couldn't see water. It was literally something that I was really, really struggling with. And then I decided, I'm like, particularly when you're fishing, you're not necessarily out there for the fun of riding whitewater. You want to be able to row whitewater, but you also are still trying to focus on fishing. And for me, I decided that while it is a little bit different, and it definitely, when you first sit in and you row for the first time, you're sitting higher, it's going to feel a little bit different. And for that reason, we have our oar length, particularly in the two-man, you can put whatever oars you want on them, but we go with 8'6".
Yep.
And we go with the shoal cut blades because you're at a steeper angle going into the water. For some people, when they first get in that boat, they're going to row it and they're going to say, this doesn't feel like my normal raft. And then when you get used to how that thing rows and you can see everything in front of you and you're not being blocked and you're reading water better and you can sight fish better, all of a sudden the fishing aspect of it takes over and it just becomes like rowing any other boat.
Yep.
And for me, that was the biggest thing.
Yep. Just to kind of quickly go over, we talked about with our three-man, what makes it stand out is its versatility, being able to go down Class 5 stuff and then being able to throw a big motor on it. It's not a lightweight boat, but it's a full-size boat. Talking about what sets our two-man boats apart from, a lot of other boats in the market, I think is the ability to throw it on top of your truck, take it to somewhere that you don't need a boat ramp, get it off the truck. It's lightweight. You can throw it down to the river, and then you can go row big water.
100%.
I think that's the biggest thing about our two-man, and specifically rowing when it's on the water. You literally can row it like a Cadillac. With one oar stroke, you can have that thing spin in a circle almost. Like it's lightweight, it's maneuverable, but it's still got big tubes on it that keep you safe. That it doesn't hold water. Like I said, you can row it like a Cadillac. Like you can move in and out of stuff. Like you're zigzagging down the river. You don't gotta, and when you're rowing a 2-man, you don't gotta worry about holding your boat parallel. You row it with, how you keeping the front angler on the line, and you don't gotta worry about the back. Like, you really can just row it a lot easier and worry about a lot less. So I think that's the biggest thing about why I like our 2-man specifically. And we really just fish with each other. We don't really fish with 3 people a lot. So if you're, you and one buddy go out, you're looking for a 2-man. Being able to row a 2-man that still can take on big water, but it's still lightweight and maneuverable, I think that makes, our 2-man stand out.
I think that's why it's the fishiest boat like on the market, because it literally, what you just said, being able to fish that one guy in front with the versatility of having the 2 pontoons, it catches more fish. Like, you put yourself in positions and lines that you just don't in other boats.
Well, we've literally taken that, our 2-man, to literally every type of water you can fish. We took it to, it's been down the Roaring Fork, the Colorado, the Eagle. You could take it down Clear Creek if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then we've taken it, we just got back from a trip on Gray Reef and the North Platte and slow water like that. Last year we took it to the Henry's Fork and, dropped it down the slide. We've taken it to, all kinds of different still waters, and you can throw the rear mount trolling motor on it.
We carried it down the Gunnison Gorge.
We carried the whole thing down the Gunnison Gorge.
Put together.
Yep. And did an overnighter with it. We
Yeah.
brought all of our camping stuff on it. So you can still load it with all of your camping gear and do overnighters. Like, it's a very versatile boat.
Yeah.
So I think that really makes the 2-man stand out. And I think that's why it's specifically my favorite boat that we sell.
Yeah. And whether it's the Twin or the Twin Pro,
Yep.
you're going to be equally as happy. It just kind of depends on what you want to do or what your goals are. If you think you're going to guide out of it, price might be a little, you get a little bit of a savings by going with the Twin versus the Twin Pro. So you can make that determination based on what your goals are.
Yep.
But either way you go, they're going to operate pretty much identically to each other.
Now moving on to our last boat, we touched on it earlier in the episode, but our 1-man. It's really where TFC was born, where everything started from. Our 1-man. We don't get out on them a ton anymore, but they're really great for the solo anglers, and like we talked about, being able to row them down, public rivers specifically. For people that really are interested in just wade fishing, but it's literally the perfect boat to, we did it at Pump House a lot.
Yeah.
Because you can take, like, obviously it's hard to row and fish at the same time. Now, I've done it, you can do it, but it can get sketchy.
Yeah.
But specifically, with our anchor system on it, if you're fishing rivers, you're floating, you can float down to different holes, drop anchor in the eddy right next to bank, and then you can fish that run and just out of the boat itself as if you're wade fishing. So it just offers wade fishermen a lot more access, just to drop anchor in holes, wade fish the run, and then move on to the next run, drop anchor, do the same thing. So I think that's kind of the cool thing about our 1-man is, if you don't have anyone else to go row, you can literally row yourself and fish that same water and just drop anchor in those holes and fish it from the boat. And specifically with, most 1-man pontoons you can't stand up in. And ours still has the stability, it's got the whole diamond plate standing platform on it, so you can stand up out of it. It's still comfortable. You still got the leg locks up there. And you still got the cooler seat.
Yeah.
It has everything the rest of our boats do, but it gives you a lot more access if you are a solo fisherman.
I think that you nailed it. Like, if you're a guy that fishes on his own a lot, whether it's still water or you want to get more into fishing rivers, or you're a wade fisherman particularly, it's still probably maybe my favorite boat that we make, even though I don't use it as much as what I would like to. And the reason is that we were wade fishermen and never had river access, and boy, thinking about floating that river, getting to that other side of the river, particularly the other side where you couldn't wade across if the water's too swift or whatever the case was. It was the boat that was a wade. It was wade fishing without walking.
Totally.
That's basically what we did and used it for, and still to this day, when we take them out, you go down, you find a run, you pull over. You're able to anchor where you want to. You can fish that run all by yourself. You've got it to yourself, and then you move on. So it's basically wade fishing without walking. And you have access to both sides of the bank. You don't have to be unsafe crossing. And then the other thing is particularly on still water. I mean, a lot of guys who are out in float tubes, they're in the water all day. And for me, as I got older, as you're sitting in the water, and the water's, maybe 38, 42, even anything under 50 degrees, it's not comfortable sitting there all day.
Or casting while you're sitting.
Casting while you're sitting was a nightmare, and I got tired of it. So this boat, it's got the flexibility of basically a belly boat or a small pontoon boat, but you can stand up in it. You can get out of the water. You're never in the water. You are above the water, so casting is incredible.
And you can still drop anchor. I mean, we've been out at some South Park reservoirs, and we stayed out there in 30-mile-an-hour winds, and it's still it didn't it's not capsizing because it's a cataraft. It's still really hard to flip, so you can stay out there in conditions that a lot of other boats can't. And you're in a small one-man boat that fits in your truck bed.
Let's put it this way: the boat will stay out there safer longer than you will, because you'll get tired of getting rocked around.
Well, that's why we say boats built to fish as hard as you do.
That's right. And that's what the one man was, right? That was the original motto, was this boat was built to fish as hard as you do.
And you can still, it still has the motor mount. You can still put motors on it, or you can row it. So it's still very, you can do a lot of different things, even with the one man.
And it still is a 19-inch tube. So it's a 10-foot boat with a 19-inch tube, and it's still 100% self-bailing. So whatever kind of whitewater you want to get into, it will still do this.
It still has storage in the back.
Yep. And you can still take everything you want, and it has a cooler, like you already touched on. But every one of these boats has a time and place, and it just depends on what your fishing life looks like.
Yeah, what you want out of your fishing experiences and what you do mostly.
Yeah.
And if our two-mans row like a Cadillac, then the one-man rows like a Lamborghini.
Yeah, 100%.
it's even if you're not into fishing, if you just want to row whitewater, going down Gore Canyon or it's a fun boat to row.
It's rock and roll. It is.
It's a fun boat to row.
100%.
Well, I think we kind of covered everything, why a cataraft, and went over specifically all of the designs of the boats we sell. And I kind of think that's the goal of this video, is just to explain what we do, who we are, and what we have to offer, just to kind of help you understand, catarafts compared to rafts and drift boats, and the benefits you get with them. I think that's definitely something that a lot of you guys have been interested in, and something that we wanted just to offer you. So
thanks. We appreciate you guys watching. If you have any more questions, please absolutely DM us. We can be found on social media.
townfishingcompany.com.
Yep. Please let us know if you got any questions. Come down, let us know. We'll set up a fitting for you. If you want to see a boat in person, if you want to sit in a boat in person, we can set a boat up for you, let you see kind of what it feels like, work your way around the boat, but we'd love to have you come down and look at it.
The other thing I want to touch on before we end this is we have built our own boats that you can buy, right out of the shop right here. But we also do we offer a lot for customizing boats. You can come in, you can design almost every color, the powder coat of your frame, the color of the tubes, and, if you have specific things about the frame that we can add on, we're also able to do that too. So we offer a lot in the customizing world. So you really can customize your boat as well, and choose what you want when it comes to whatever boat you're buying.
You can literally make this boat one of a kind. If you'd like to make it that way, from a color combination, whatever you'd like to do, we'd love to help you do that also.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to, did I say watching?
Watching? Don't watch it. We're not watching.
We're not watching. thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you got any comments or questions, leave it in the comments below, or like we said, DM us, shoot us a text, or give us a call. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks.